Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Andy Godoy Show. I'm your host, Andy Godoy, and I am back again with another one of these YouTube podcast things that I do. So, let me quickly stop that music and tell you what today's show is all about. So today, I am going to be talking about and reviewing a new ZX Spectrum game, and that game is Wonderfull Dizzy. So yeah, we've got a new Dizzy game in 2020. So honestly, it's unbelievable. Cannot believe it. I'm a huge Dizzy fan, and if you don't know who Dizzy is, shame on you. This is Dizzy here. He's a little character that looks like an egg, but he's not an egg. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the game itself. But yeah, I grew up playing Dizzy as a kid, and I was a big fan of all the games. My favorite three are like the original, then it's like Treasure Island Dizzy and Fantasy World Dizzy. And don't get me wrong, the other Dizzy games are great, but more on that later on. So anyway, big shout out to the Oliver twins for sending me a copy of the game that I could review. And I got it in in advance, and I've been playing it, and I wanted to complete it, and I have. And it's a great honor because being a big sort of ZX Spectrum fan, and Dizzy was always the big main character. You had other characters like Horace and sort of like Manic Miner, but for me, Dizzy was our like icon basically. You know, Nintendo had Mario, and the Specky had Dizzy. So Wonderfull Dizzy then. So Wonderfull Dizzy is like a new ZX Spectrum game made by the makers of the guys that made Crystal Kingdom remake. So the Oliver twins designed this game, and they based it on The Wizard of Oz. So there's so many things that, you little references with Dizzy-like characters. And I tell you what, it's one of the best games I've played in a long time, and it is brilliant. So you start off with a story mode. You sort of like find yourself sort of like being transported to this Ozland, basically, and there you are at the beginning. You encounter some characters, and everything is so beautiful. Everything is so bright. Everything is so colorful. The programmers in this game have really pushed the ZX Spectrums to its limits, just with how much color is on the screen. But the great thing about the graphics on this game is it's not like in your face, because the problem with the Specky, whether you like it or not, was the attribute clash. I love it, but it did get in the way sometimes. But this is so smartly done. All the tiles, all the graphics, all the sprites look amazing, very cartoony. And the original Dizzy was also known as the Ultimate Cartoon Adventure because it looked like a cartoon. And I will say, this game looks and feels more of a cartoon than any of the other Dizzy games before. So you've got to set out. You've got to try and rescue your friend, the little Pogie, who basically in this, he's like the Toto. He's been kidnapped by the witch, and you've got to go and rescue him. And you run into some familiar characters. There's a yellow brick road. You've got to get keys. You've got to get certain items that, to solve the puzzle, just like your typical Dizzy games. Now, I will say I spent a good week or two playing this, and I'll tell you what, I felt like a kid all over again. It was just the exact same feeling, sort of playing a new Dizzy adventure, and I have not felt this way in a long time. Now, earlier on I mentioned Dizzy 1, Dizzy 2, and Dizzy 3. Those have always been my favorite. Those were designed sort of by the Oliver twins, programmed by the Oliver twins. But the other ones, I think it was Big Red Software that took over. And there was nothing wrong with those games, but I always thought it was missing that something. And this game, been designed by the Oliver twins, and it's been worked on by the same team that made the Crystal Kingdom remake, which is really good and you should check out. This game has got everything. Honestly, it's got the puzzles. It's got Dizzy, obviously, but Dizzy's wearing a little hat and a backpack, so he looks like a proper explorer. He's got loads of animation, little things like sitting down when he eats. The game is a big game. It's not huge. It's not as huge, say, as Spellbound Dizzy. And I think the problem with Spellbound Dizzy was it was too big. This game is just the perfect size where you can pick up and play, and you always get that little bit further. You get 3 lives. Obviously you sort of lose lives and energy if you hit like a bird or something will kill you. Certain things will kill you straight away, so be warned from that if you fall into water, if you get hit by certain things. But as always, you've got some creatures there that will take your energy away. And that's one of the things I want to talk about. Some of the bird animation, and it sounds silly I'm saying this, some of the animated birds like crows are flying around. They look amazing, very cartoon-like. And honestly, if I had played this game as a kid, I would have sort of exploded with happiness. I would have just been like, wow. And as a 43-year-old man and a big Dizzy fan, I'm just equally as ecstatic about this game. Okay, let's talk about the graphics. Bright, colorful, very cartoony. Every sort of screen has got like a story to tell, whether it be like the yellow brick road, whether you'd be on a pier, whether you'd be in a clock tower. It's got so many different locations. You've got your typical sort of like Dizzy sort of friends there, but they're playing the roles of the character from sort of the Wizard of Oz. You've got, you know, someone like the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Friendly Lion. It's all very familiar. And that's the great thing about this. We're all familiar with the Wizard of Oz, and this is this game set in that environment. So I want to say that this game is possibly my new favorite Dizzy game. And again, big shout out to the programmers that worked so hard on this. The music's amazing, the graphics are amazing, but what I love the most is the story. There's some amazing interactions between Dizzy and the characters, and the script is fantastic. It won't take you a long time to complete the game, but you know what? It's one of those little things that you can just keep on playing again and again. And like I said, I'll post links where you can find a wonderfulldizzy.com. That's where you can play it. You can play it for free. It's the 18th of December. What better Christmas present than playing a new Dizzy game, especially for you Dizzy fans. Now, I know some people don't like Dizzy, but hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Give it a go. And if you like it, fantastic. If you don't, hey, all I'm saying is this is my favorite Dizzy game I've played in many, many years. I love it. It's up there with Fantasy World Dizzy. It's my new favorite Dizzy game. Big shout out to the Oliver twins. Big shout out to the team behind it and to the people on the Get to the Chopper Facebook group. Right, let's start rounding the show up then. I'm going to give this game a 5 out of 5 for graphics, playability, music, and everything. This game is perfection. So you can follow me at the Andy Godoy Show on Instagram, at Andy Godoy Show on Twitter. But don't forget, head on over to the Facebook group, which is Get to the Chopper. Now, in the new year, this podcast will be going to its own feed, which will be the Andy Godoy Show on iTunes. But for now, it will be available on Get to the Chopper podcast on iTunes. So thank you very much. I shall hit that music and say goodbye.